everyone! Welcome back to Animation. In today's episode, we're gonna do a poster animation and we're gonna animate a poster that was designed by Jeremy Mura. So Jeremy Mura is a logo and brand identity designer from Sydney. He has a YouTube channel where he teaches practical tutorials on Illustrator and Photoshop, but he also teaches about graphic design to help beginners. He also has an Instagram account where he shares a lot of design tips, and I've put all of his details in the description below so you can check him out and follow his accounts. So this is the beautiful poster that Jeremy designed for this tutorial, and as you can see here, he has a different type of elements. He has graphic elements, he has the text elements, so there's a lot of things that we can animate from this poster. And when you get a file from Illustrator or a designer to animate, you have to make sure you open the raw file first. So you open it in Illustrator or Photoshop. The reason is so that you can check whether all of the elements are separated in its own layer. So at the moment, Jeremy has separated the elements in its own layer. However, I've noticed here the skull and the gradient still in the same layer, so I want to separate that. Same with the numbers here. I think they're all in the same layer, so I'm gonna separate that as well. So when you want to take out layers from the root layer, there's two ways that you can do. You can literally just select and then cut by pressing Ctrl X on your keyboard, and then create a new layer, and I'm gonna call it skull, and I'm gonna hit Ctrl Shift V to paste it. So you can do that. That's one way to do it, but the other way to do it is, for example, if I choose this layer here, the 2021, you want to go to this three lines icons here, click on it, and then go to release to layers sequence. And then what it does, it's just gonna like separate everything that's on that layer on its separate layer, and then you can just select them all and bring it out of the main layer. It has its own layer now. We can probably delete that layer over here, the 2021. So I'm gonna delete that. What I'm gonna do, actually, I'm gonna bring these little numbers on the same layer as the circle. So I'm gonna hit Ctrl X and then paste it on here, Ctrl Shift V. And then once the numbers are in the same layer as the circle, I'm gonna delete these layers because we don't need that, because that's empty. And then also the lines here, they're on the same layer. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing again, release to layer sequence, and then gonna bring this all out. And I'm gonna delete this, and I'm gonna name this line 1. Just remember to name your layers because it will help you a lot. If you want, you can also separate these little text on the sides here, but I'm just gonna leave it as is because I want to show you that we can do that as well sometimes in After Effects, depending on the elements itself. Like for these little texts here, we can just like do a mask in After Effects later. So after that, you have to make sure that you save your file, so Ctrl S. And then let's jump into After Effects, and then we're gonna import the file. So Ctrl I to import. So when you found your file, you have to click on it, and then under Import As here, you have to select Composition Retain Layer Sizes. That way your layers from Illustrator got brought into After Effects and you're just preserving those layers. It's imported as a composition, so you can open that, and all of your layers obviously now separated, which is great. The next thing that I usually would do is to color code the layers, just because I like it neat and tidy. So that's done. I'm just gonna move this first two up here just so that it's in order, and then this line, just gonna move it just below the numbers. Let's start with this 2021 numbers. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna scale the numbers here. So if I click on this color thumbnail here and then select label group, that would just select all of the layers that has the same color. That's why coloring your layer is quite important. And I'm gonna hit S and then animate the scale. I'm gonna turn it to 0. Maybe I'll animate the rotation as well. And I'm just gonna change it to like around minus 90 or something. I'm gonna select all of the keyframes, hit F9, and then you can use this plugin by AEJuice. So if I hit Shift F, so once you download this AEJuice tools called Copy Ease, it basically just kind of like fasten your process of like, instead of going to graph editor and just like move the handles one by one, they actually have created its own shape of graph editor. So you can just like double click it, Control V to paste it, and then it just kind of like apply the effect straight away. So if you want to download the plugin, I've put the link in the description below as well. So that's done. Now I'm gonna animate the line. So I'm gonna click on the color thumbnail again, select label group, and then I'm gonna animate the position. And I'm just gonna move it off frame like this. I'm gonna move it down so that it kind of like comes in diagonally. Hit Control A to select all of the layers, close everything, select the fuchsia again, and then just hit U to show the keyframes. Then select all the keyframes, hit F9 and hit Shift V to paste. So I'm gonna just go to graph editor here. So if I select all the keyframes and then hit Shift V, they paste the shape from the Copy Ease straight away. So that's really handy. So it's gonna move like that. Move it down a little bit just so that the diagonal shape of the position kind of like matches the shape of the line itself. I think that looks better. Yeah, that's much better. Let's do main text. So because of the main text, it's kind of like a vector file, so it's not an actual text layer, so you can't do text animators. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to do a stroke effect on it. So we just do kind of like a writing in effect. So if you go to effects and preset, type in stroke, drop that onto your main text, and then I'm just going to draw on it using pencil. So if I just draw on the G, now you want to go to your stroke effect here, and I'm going to turn on all mask and just leave the stroke sequentially for now. I'm going to change the color to red just so that we can see where our mask is, and obviously the mask is not covering the letter at all. So I'm going to bump up the brush hardness, and I'm going to bump up the brush size as well until the reds kind of like cover all of the whites. So sometimes you have to adjust the mask as well, like I do here. Alright, I'm just gonna fast forward this video because I'm just gonna mask these letters. So there I was just copying the mask because it's good and good. So I just copy in the mask and just paste it there just to make it faster. Now, just want to animate the end. So if we animate it from 0 to 100, I'm going to hit Shift V again to paste the graph editor shape from Copy Ease. Just like that, and I'm going to reveal original image. So obviously that feels really fast. So what I'm going to do, actually, I should have done this earlier. I'm going to separate the line in its separate layer. So I'm going to duplicate this 3 times. So there's 4 layers, and I'm going to name this good. Design is good business. Let's start with the first one first. So we want to just leave the mask on good. So we're going to delete all of the rest of the masks that we don't need. And then same with design. We're going to delete all of the masks that we don't need except for design. And then is good. And then this is the last one. So once that's done, let's just have a look again. So it just kind of like animates like that. Now actually, after looking at the animation, I don't really like the movement of the easy ace. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select all the keyframes on the green layer. I'm gonna hit Shift F again, and I'm gonna select this one, is in 04, and then Shift V to paste. Now, if you don't have the AE Juice tool copy ace, you can always go to Graph Editor and just kind of like adjust the handle manually. I have a tutorial about keyframes in Graph Editor, so you can refer to that and watch that to understand the Graph Editor more. Otherwise, you can always download the AE Juice tool, and it's just been really helpful for me. So it feels better now to me, so I like that kind of movement. And now let's do the skull. So for the skull, I think I'm just gonna scale that from 0 to 100. 0. Shift F again, and I'm gonna select this one. And then for the gradient, I'm gonna do the same, scale, and then 0, and then just Shift V to paste. So it's like that. And also for the gradient, I'm gonna put turbulent displays. So if you tap in turbulent displays in your effects and presets, drop that onto your layer, and I'm gonna animate the evolution. So hit Alt and click on the stopwatch icon to create an expression. So I'm gonna tap in time, maybe 50, and see how that looks. I am actually gonna bump it up to 100 so that we can see the movement more. And now I'm gonna just increase the size and maybe reduce the amount a little bit. Now we're gonna animate the little text on the sides, and I think I'm just gonna do like a blinking, flickering effect. So before we do that, I am gonna pre-compose this text and just call it body text. That's fine. You can leave all attributes, and then I'm gonna go inside. I'm gonna just duplicate it by 4, I think, because there's 5 separate thing here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna duplicate it by 4 to make like 5 layers. I'm gonna change the color differently, and then I'm gonna mask this. So this is what I was talking about, separating elements in After Effects. So basically this is what you can do. You can just like mask that. So that's designed by Jeremy Mura. That's the design tutorial. That's collaboration with Animotion. That's the poster series. And the last one is this long one. Okay, so I'm gonna select all of the layers and then hit Ctrl Alt Home to put the anchor point in center of each mask. I am actually gonna separate this more. So this one is designed by Jeremy Mura. So I'm gonna duplicate this, and then I'm gonna change the mask. So this one is only design, and this one is by Jeremy Mura. What I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna hit T to bring up the opacity, and then create an expression. So Alt click stopwatch, and then we're gonna do wiggle. So wiggle, maybe I want the opacity to wiggle 10 times, and the value would be 20. See how that looks. So it just kind of like flickering a little bit. So I'm gonna bring that up actually to 75. So that's much better. I'm gonna do the same. I'm actually just gonna copy and paste, and I'm gonna change the number. So maybe bring it up to 20, and this one is to 125. So it kind of like wiggles more. So it kind of like flickers more like that. Maybe for the design tutorial, I'm gonna duplicate it 2 times, so there's 3 layers. Maybe I'll do one just design. The other one, maybe I'm just gonna focus on the TU of the tutorial, and then the last one will be the last tutorial. So I'm just gonna copy this opacity here. So copy that and then just paste it, and then we'll just change the value basically. So it just has a more variation. Obviously you can isolate each letter as well, but that would take a long time. I'm not gonna do that for this tutorial, but you can absolutely do that. And I'm gonna keep doing that, so I'm gonna just fast forward this video. Now if we go back to the main comp, preview those, we just have to stagger the animation, obviously. So maybe we'll have the text come in first. I'm gonna put this all the way to the top, and then maybe this call and gradient comes in second. So I'm gonna bring them 10 frames forward maybe, and maybe the gradient 5 frames later, and then just bring the numbers, the year number backwards a little bit. And then I'm gonna stagger this to maybe 10 frames each. Let's have a look. I'm not gonna animate these two, that they're just gonna kind of like be already there. The other thing that I want to do, so I want to kind of like continuously animate these numbers. I'm just gonna create a rotation. So after this, maybe like around there, I'm gonna create a rotation 1, and I'm gonna shift V, paste the shape of the graph editor. It's basically just gonna do that. And maybe I'll just extend the gap of the keyframes, so it's like that. And I'm just gonna copy this and paste it to the others, just to see where the rotations are. There, there, and maybe here as well, and then here. Just kind of like randomize. But also it goes for 15 seconds, so I'm actually gonna cut it to 10 seconds. So put your playhead on 10 seconds and then N on your keyboard, and then just drag that to the left. Make sure it's the 10 seconds that you want, and then trim comp to work area. Now let's have a look again. So for the text itself, I might actually stagger them a little bit. So maybe like by 5 frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just to add an extra something, I'm gonna add wiggle on some of the text. If we create expression wiggle, maybe just a little bit, maybe like 3,0.5, and just see how that looks. So you can't really see it actually. So I'm gonna add that up a little bit, maybe 5.2. Yeah, so it's moving now. I'm not gonna do it to everything, maybe just like some of them. This one maybe 7.1.5, and maybe the business as well. Wiggle, maybe not too much, 3.2. Yeah, so that's much better. It just to keep the momentum going. I've made a mistake. So once that animate, look at this number 2, it's like kind of like doing that again. So I don't really want that effect actually, but if that's something that you want to do, that's totally fine. So what I'm going to do, because we've already created the keyframes, that's off the composition, so I'm going to click on that arrow and then turn it off, and then it should fix it. You can always add extra things, like for example, you can add a posterize time, maybe if you want to make it a bit jittery. So create an adjustment layer, and I'm going to call it posterize time, and look for posterize time on your effects and presets. So if you don't know what posterize time is, it's basically reduce your frame rate so that when you reduce it, it just kind of make it a bit like jittery. It just gives that organic kind of like cartoony feeling. Obviously not everyone likes this, because I have a couple of experience where I put posterize time on my work and then my client just don't like that look. They're just asking why does it look jittery, and I was like, oh, I actually did that on purpose, but if you don't like it, I'll just take it off. You can also add dusty texture, so if you want to create a solid and just call it dust and change that to white, and then look for fractal noise, and then basically set it to screen, and then bring down the brightness. Bring down the brightness and then up the contrast. So it's kind of like sharper, and then bring it down again until it looks like it's a dusty speckles. And you can also turn down the scale, so like that. Gonna bring down the brightness even more, so just a little bit, and I'm gonna move it down below the posterize time. So you want to go under evolution options and then animate the random seed by adding a time expression. So just alt click on the stopwatch and then time as there as maybe 100 and see how that looks like. Yeah, so that's perfect. Yeah, so that's what I would do to animate this poster. Obviously, different person would animate this differently. It depends on your style and depends on what you like to see. But this is how I would animate this poster. So hope that kind of like give you an inspiration if you want to animate like an existing asset, like a poster or an illustration next time you do your project. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.